Hello, good evening everyone. So, welcome to EV's classroom and the I.C.T, A-level I.C.T paper discussion. Right. So, our target of this particular session is to give you a kind of a brief idea about how to start your, how to study or how to start do your exam, A-level exam, which is around 2 months more to go, right? So our target is to give you a kind of a head start of doing papers, past papers, and how to attempt those questions and how to generate question answers, how to generate an answer when the question is given, likewise, right? So so we thought of doing this discussion topic wise as a series, and it's the first day, and we thought of taking the web development with the HTML, CSS and PHP, because it is a kind of a question which comes definitely comes in the second paper. I hope you are aware about the A-level paper structure. So it is based on 50 MCQs, which is paper 1, and paper 2 is of 4 structured questions, and you have to select 4 essay questions. So mark breakdown of this subject, the paper 1 and paper 2 is equal, 50-50. So as an exam, the most important, we can't say most important because it's 50-50, right? Anyhow, attempting those 50 MCQs is very critical, because for each question you get either 1 mark or 0 marks, and the other 50, which is taken by the second paper, can be kind of less riskier, because you can get partial marks. You can write things so that you can explain things, not like either true or false. You can get partial marks. So attempting the second paper well is more important to get a good grade, good pass, equal important as the first paper, MCQs. So MCQ discussion we'll do later, but as I mentioned earlier, our target for this particular discussion is to give you a head start of the second paper. And the first topic that we thought of doing is this HTML, CSS, PHP, because most of the students maybe learned this one. The subject is kind of interesting, this particular topic for I.C.T, because it's very practical. If you have tried and tried to do this web development, as I can remember, it's like chapter competence level 10. Practically, if you start learning this one with practical knowledge, practical experience, then you could have performed very well, because it's very interesting, very practical, right? So what our target is to give you a brief intro, right? So I have chosen 3 papers, 2017, 2018 and 2020. So these papers to give you a head start, right, about this discussion. So my target is not to teach you everything which belongs to these particular topics, but to give you a brief idea about how to attempt a question, and with that target we'll try to gather around more details, more things which is needed around that question, right? So it's not a revision, it's a paper discussion. So I have chosen 3 papers, actually 3 questions. Again, out of these 3, 2 questions are structured type, 1 question is essay type. So essay question is available here in 2017 paper. These 2 are structured questions, right? So we'll give you a start. So as I earlier mentioned you, before we start, let me just give you a brief idea about the marking breakdown of the subject, right? Not for this particular I.C.T, but for any subject. It's like, if I'm not mistaken, 50-50 for the first paper and for the second paper. Second paper carries, so marks are given out of 100 for both papers and 200 together, and we divide it by 2, so you get the marks out of 100, right? So this 100 marks is taken like no. Yes. 4 structured questions, 10 each, so you get 40, and 4 essay questions that you have to attempt. Each question carries 15 marks, so 60. Altogether you can get 100, right? The thing is, you don't have any options for these structured questions. You have to write everything. You have to attempt all the 4 questions given, but here you have a choice. So most of the times in recent history, the web HTML, CSS, PHP part mostly came with the structured question. Other than very few attempts, it goes into a second paper, but we can't predict. Anyhow, one of the questions out of these 8 questions, no, not 8, out of these questions, definitely HTML question will be there. Simply not just HTML, altogether everything, right? And if you look into the series of papers starting with, let's say, 2011 up to 2020, you will see earlier it is basically based on HTML, then it is the CSS was bit added, and currently, if you let's have a look in few minutes time, right? It is included, PHP also included in the question. So complexity is getting, it's not complicated because that's the way normally a syllabus goes in. So everything is in one place in a single question, right? Everything, not just HTML, it's a combination of everything, right? So this is the idea. So we'll give you a head start. As I mentioned you earlier, papers that I have taken is 2017, 2018 and 2020, right? Few questions, 3 questions. I'll try to finish this particular discussion around 1.5 hours or 2 maximum. Within that time, we'll cover up as much as possible, everything that we could cover up, right? So okay, right, so let me start with the first question, which is the 2017 paper. So I will be doing a lot of drawings here. I hope it won't be a problem, because I just took the images of the original papers. I didn't want to change the structure, especially when I moved to the structured questions. I just left it as it is, not to have any other special spaces or any wrong input. It's exactly it's like the images of the original paper, right? So first question what I'm taking here is from the 2017 paper. It's 2017 2B, which is the essay part of the paper, right? So structured an essay. It is an essay question. So I chose this one as the very first question because this covers a lot. This covers almost everything, all the features available in HTML that we have to discuss under our syllabus, right? So what we have to do is we'll read the question and we'll try to come up with a solution. Then we'll try to achieve it. So it's a huge code since it was 15-mark question, and you have to do a lot of writings here. You have to write it in a separate paper. So I will try not to write, because writing in this particular method is not very convenient and not very clear, but I try to make sure that it's clear as possible, as much as possible, right? Okay, we'll see. So okay, first on. Actually, it's the 6th question of the paper. You have a choice here of this particular question, but if you are familiar with the basic HTML, it's a very easy question, but you have to do a lot of writing, but again, kind of easy. Okay, we'll see. So Environmental Institute of Colombo intends to develop a website to provide information on an art competition for students. A web page from this website and another web page with the entry form to register for the competition are shown in as figure 6.1 and 6.2 respectively, right? So this is the second page that they are talking about. So 2 web pages are given, 2 screenshots are given. Maybe this image is not that clear, but the original paper, when you go and write the paper, it's much clear. This is a kind of a scan version. So yeah, it could be bit it's more than enough, right? So what the first question asks? So using appropriate HTML tags, create an HTML file required to render the web page as shown in figure 6.1. Your code should satisfy the following requirements. So you have to write the HTML code, the whole code. It is not just a few parts, you have to write everything, right? So starting with the HTML tag, I hope you are aware of these tags, because again, as I mentioned, I'm not going to teach you the basics. I'm not going to revise you everything, but we'll attempt the question. With that, we'll handle everything, right? So HTML tag, from the beginning of the HTML tag till we close it, we have to write everything which display this particular output. So plus we have some other set of requirements to be satisfied, but what we have to know is, now we have a web page, right? If it is a practical question, now since we are trying this one now, not the exam time, right? You could give it a try with the machine, right? You better write it down first, but you can attempt it with the machine, which will be very easy, right? You can get the output and see, right? Anyhow, we'll see. So using appropriate HTML tag, you have to satisfy the following requirements. It is required to format the text of the list in Calibri font. List, yeah, we can see there is a list, unordered list. There are bullets, so it's unordered list. So you have to recognize, yeah, here the list, and it is unordered. Unordered. That means unordered tag is here, right? So in a paper you can mark anything in pencil, so you can do it. Okay, the font should be in Calibri. So it's Calibri font, Calibri font, 14 points high. It's not pixel, it's 14 points. Red color, and the list should be bulleted with squares. Yes, it's squared. It just highlights the points available in the image. Format the list by using internal or external style sheets only. So style sheets, it's directly starting with CSS, right? So CSS. So we have to start with style sheets, right? So styles, I hope you are aware of cascading style sheet or CSS, right? So here the CSS, basically the basic idea is you have HTML and CSS, which will deals with the front end. of any system, given system. And in another chapter, as I can remember, it's chapter 9, competency level 9 or something, where you have the databases, right? And from the HTML and CSS, you will learn how to draw the forms with different text and images and lot of buttons and everything. So how you develop the front end. And in the database concept, you will learn how to do the ER diagrams and how to convert them into a schema, and how to, by using SQL, MySQL, you develop the database. So again, that part is available in the syllabus another day, right? We'll discuss that part in another day. And here PHP will do the connection part or the communication part between this the front end and the back end, right? So everything. So HTML is the basic output, basic structure. CSS will just make it smooth, nice, and good appearance, right? Appearance will be considered with CSS, right? So CSS, when we talk about CSS, we can represent cascading styles, or simply it is about styles, right? We can represent styles in few different ways, 3 different ways, right? Initially we can represent them using an external. I'll go for another slide, right? CSS. So we can represent them externally as external style sheet. So we can define all the styles in a separate file, right? That's the first method, right? Separate style sheet, it's a separate one, right? Where we store it with something like def.css, something like that, right? Or we can represent it as internal styles, which is unique or which is specific for a page, or we can call it as page specific. And the third one is what we call as inline styles. Inline style, which is very specific or element specific. So we have to know how to do it in all these 3 ways. External style sheet means that you will be writing all the styles that you are going to define over the website and save it under .css file, and you are going to include that file into a HTML file, so you can easily deal with the styles. Page specific, where you will be writing everything on the head, right? You will be writing these the styles. You will define the styles here in the header part of the HTML file inside the style tag, right? Style, we write like type equals text/CSS, and inside that we define all the styles, right? And external slides, what we do with external styles is we represent the styles, this particular style, in a separate file called something, and we will import these parts in head, right? We are going to import this particular files, the CSS file that we have created, in a separate in the header file, not as just like importing, right? It's just importing the files, right? Third one is here we import it as link and href, and we'll say it's def.css in the header. Right, head. So this file is imported here. Here the styles are mentioned, and in the inline styles what we do is, wherever we have a tag, we can define the style within double quotes. Right, we can define all the list of styles that we define anywhere here. Right, so there are advantages, disadvantages in all the cases. We can have all three types in a single HTML page. All three can be there. If we have all the three options in a single HTML page, so this will get the higher priority. If I say option 1, option 2 and option 3, if all three were available, so inline styles will have the highest priority. It's like just listening to whoever the person who's very near to you, rather than the person who is outside the room. Right, if someone is just forcing you to do something by just be behind you, be besides you, that you have to, it's kind of forcefully you have to do it, something like that. So inline style is something like that. It's very near, it's just with you. So this has the highest priority rather than the internal option. So having an external file has again less power if all the three methods are available. Right, otherwise if the 2 and 3 methods are not there, external slides will do well. Only thing is there are advantages, because in an external style sheet you can have several styles defined. Right, and you can have the same style sheet in different HTML files as well, different websites maybe. But in the option 2, internal styles, it is just for that particular HTML file. So if we have paragraph styles, we have defined paragraph styles here, this style could be used anywhere in the same sheet but not in anywhere else. In the third option, inline style is, if you make a paragraph style here, if you have 10 of the same style, 10 different places of the same style, that you have to mention it 10 times. So programmatically, or the what we call in practically, writing inline style is not that convenient probably, and it will make the code very lengthier, very complex. It looks not very neat. It's too much, too many things are there, and so it's not very convenient. Option 1 is very convenient in that case, but as a powerful, if you consider the power of any of these styles, option 3 has higher power if we have all three. Right, so that's the basic intro of the different styles. So if we get back to the question, what we are asked to do is format the list by using the internal or external style sheets only. So you have no option to, no way that if you have done it using inline styles, it's not going, you are not going to have marks. If you use option 3 for that answer, it's 0 marks. Right, so we have to make sure that we do it in exactly the way the question has been asked. Right, so internal or external style sheet. So I'll go for the external style sheet first. Right, so if I take a notepad, I'll create a new doc. Right, so I'll have side by side view. Font is increased a bit. So what we have to do here is we have to write the style, right? So we'll start with the HTML page. So you can write either capital or simple, you know that, right? So HTML, and yes, that's the start, right? And then we have the head. You know, when you type, yes, I know it's easy because you can open and close and you can have any lines in between. So when you're writing, you don't have that option. So you have to do it in one go. No, that's why they are giving you rough sheets, right? So you can use the rough sheets if you need to make sure that you do it nicely, neatly, because when you are answering the question papers, you have to make sure that you have done it nicely in a cleaner way, right? The paper should be readable at the end, right? So we'll see. So head should come first, and we'll do it in inline way, right? So internal slides there. Anyhow, we have to define the styles. Yes, we know that we are talking about style, the style tag. So here we can type text.php, so not CSS, text.css, and until the end of the styles tag, right? We can, in between this, we can define our styles. So that's the basic structure. And after the head, we will have the body of the page, and we can use the files, right? So here in between the style opening and closing styles tags, we can define whatever the styles that we are supposed to define, right? But before that, we normally include some other two tags as well, something like meta tag, right, which will specify the encoding system for the HTML document, right? So meta, normally after HTML5, we use charset as UTF-8, and we'll define the style. So here this UTF-8 will have the almost all the characters available in the world and symbols both. So here it will be just talking about the character encoding system, right? And after that you can have, of course, you can have the title slide because we are answering a question. So title is here, right? So title, there is a title, so we have to define that title as well, right? So we'll come back to title tag later. Title and title, so you can write it in a single line, of course, it's just a title, right? Let's do it. We'll information, so whatever the things that we mention here in the title bar, we are referring it here, right? So no problem of leaving spaces, it won't make any difference, right? So we have to define the styles here, and we have to define the content of the HTML page here, right? So style, CSS, how do we write the styles, right? Normally how we write a style is that we have to mention the tag that we are dealing with, right? Tag, we have to define the tag, and then we have to define the properties and the values of that particular tag, right? So if I consider a paragraph tag, we have to open the curly brackets, and we have to define maybe the font that we are using. Earlier in the question it is given as Calibri, as I can remember, right? Yes, it's Calibri. And semicolon, and next property and its value, next property and its value. So all these properties are separated with a semicolon, and we have to close the bracket, right? So this is how we define the tags. CSS file over a tag with just mentioning the tag, how to refer using tag. And there are few more. We can define a CSS file as a class attribute by using the class attribute, and of course both tag and class, and maybe with element ID. So CSS is same, but we can define it over different ways to be used with the tags, right? For now we'll just deal with this tag question, this method. Right. So what we need here is a style. So style, it says the list needed to be styled with Calibri 14 point red. So we'll see. So we'll define it over list. So opening and closing curly brackets. That's the way I do, because I might forget things, right? So it says font is Calibri, so it's actually not the font but font family in CSS. So font family is Calibri, semicolon. Next line. Font size is 14 points, not pixels, 14 points. Right? If it is pixel, you have to mark px. Then it says color equals red, and the last one, the squares. It should be bulleted with squares. So list style should be bulleted with as a square. The default one is circle, a square. Square spellings SQUARE. Right, so the spellings and these names, right, matters. Okay, fine. So this is how we have mentioned it as an internal slide. It is mentioned in the head of the sheet, right? So style is mentioned. We have not done anything other than the title of the slide or this particular question, right? So what we are going to do is, then we'll get back to this. So the first question says write the external style sheet, and further when the user clicks on the hypertext means this hypertext online entry form, right? Online entry form on the web page, the entry form should given in figure 6.2 should be rendered in a new tab page. Assume that the name of the HTML file of this page is form.html, right? Okay, for now this is okay. We have done the first part, right? But we have to write everything. So we'll go back, we'll quickly write down the content of the body, right? So head is done, styles are there, everything is there, title is mentioned, so we need the question. So we'll define the other properties. So when you are looking at this question, it looks like heading 1. So I'll take it as header 1, this one as header 2, again this one looks like header, so header 3, and this is the list. It's a list, right? And then you have the list item in a kind of a way, right? And then again same size, so I'll take it as h3, and a normal paragraph, right? So I'll use these set of files, head tags, to mention whatever the things available. because we have no idea about the colors other than the mentioned list color, and color is handled already, right? So in the body, first of all, I have the H1. Capital simple is not a problem, but student art competition, and H1 is done, right? Then headers will automatically have the line breaks, and H2 will be there. The H2 is says theme, later on the environment. H2 done. H2 done. Then again H3. I have decided to do it, go with H3 for the next line. Prices, it's capital, prices. So H3. So don't miss out points, right? H3. Simple things, don't neglect. That's done. Then comes the list, right? So it's an unordered list. So unordered list starts with UL, it should end with UL, right? In between, you have to mention the list items. So we don't have to worry about making them red and the square size, everything. This list item is the tag that we have used here. So whenever we call list item, this styles will be applied, right? So list item, so it says first price something, so list item is close, and second place and third place and everything. So I'll get a copy, paste, Control V. So Control C. Control V and Control V. Right. Okay, done. So this is second and third. So second. So go one step at a time. So header part is done. The list is already done. Since we have listed out the properties here, it's done. So unordered list is over. Then again we have the another one that we thought of doing it as H3. So header size, header level 3, and we'll go for capital entry 4 H3, right? And then we'll have the paragraph tag. So I'll consider it as a paragraph. In the paragraph tag, we'll have to mention please fill and submit this online entry form. What's this online entry form? So online entry form, it says in the question, when a user clicks on the hypertext online entry form in this particular text on the web page, the entry form given in 6.2 should be rendered on a new tab page. So in a new tab, so what does it mean by new tab? So you know that when it clicks, it can be automatically set into open in a new tab or open in the same tag or somewhere else, right? So you can have this particular tag, right? It is going to be and link. It's going to be a hyperlink. So hyperlinks starts with anchor tag and close with the anchor tag, right? So in between these hyperlinks, I have to mention the rest of the content. Online entry 4. I'll take it into a new line so it's clear enough, right? Online entry form, and after the link to enter the competition, rest of the content, right? So this is the text. So I'll keep it in a next line just to make it clear. So anchor tag is here. So it is a tag, anchor, so it's a link. So we have to mention the reference. So when we click this, it says it should go and open the forms.html. Where was it? Form.html, right? So href, we have to go and open form.html, right? And it should start with a new tab. So how do we mention this new tab content? New tab, it is the target. So even the anchor property has, so anchor property has its own set of properties. Anchor tag has own set of properties. So one of them is href, where it will give you, where you have to mention the loading page to be loaded, and then you have target, right? There should be a target too. So target could be either underscore blank or underscore self or underscore parent underscore top, likewise. So simply blank means simply open the link in a new tab or a window. Self means open in the same frame. You are aware about frames. In the same frame, wherever it clicks, open in the same frame. And open in the parent or the whatever the original document in this whole, the same page. Kind of same, not the same frame, but the same parent frame. The whole page, it will take whole page or something. If this is the page, and if this is frame 1, and if this is frame 2, right? Frame 2, frame 1, page 1, right? If the link is available in frame 2, self will load the things in frame 2, in the same frame. If the link is F2 and the target is given as parent, it will use F1 as the loading image, right? If we use top, it will use page 1, full body, right? It will use P1 to load the resultant or the loading page, right? Here in this case, it's form.html. So that's the idea. So we have to know how to make it. So it is dealt with the target, right? So target is the key property, and we'll say we need in the same tab, new tab or page. So we'll go for target equals underscore blank, underscore blank. So you have to know which one to use depending on the given question, right? So that's the idea. So paragraph tag needed to be closed. If we start, we have to close it, and done. That's the end. So paragraph is done, body is closed, HTML is closed, right? So it's a kind of a lengthier code, will take up 1 page probably. So before you go and start writing, you better plan your answer. So you can draw anything in. I prefer if you can write things, if you are going to write things in the paper, in the original paper, better do it using a pencil, right? See, I'm writing in a pen and it makes a mess, right? So make sure that you do it in a pencil, so you won't make a permanent mess, right, during the exam. And yes, it's a huge thing. So before you attempt, you better plan how you write the answer, right? So I have taken quite a few time, a considerable amount of time for the first part. No problem. Thing is that we are discussing the basics, right? We go back to the beginning and revising everything and coming back. So I think it won't be a problem, right? So that's the idea. Simply it says using appropriate HTML tags, create a HTML file required to render the web page as shown in 6.1, including few styles. And done. Just the first question of an essay question, right? So it's huge. And we have one more to go. So another question is given. So I'll enlarge this. Art competitions. This is the form.html, the entry form, right? Entry form is here. So what they are asking, using appropriate HTML tags, again create an HTML file to render the entry form given in figure 6.2. The options for grade category are given in figure 6.3. Oh, there is another one. Options for grade category. This one. This is a drop down list, right? So it's a drop down list. And here we have a radio button. Here we have a text box. Rest of the things, and here we have check boxes. And what is this? As I can clear the entries. So it simply says clear the entry, clear your entries. See, so it's something like the reset button. Reset button will clear everything, and submit button is click, so it's submit. So that's the question, right? So we'll take another color. Okay. Right. So we have to write the HTML. So better we plan, right? Better we plan the things, and we'll see. Grade category are given. The options in the grade category, options in the drop down list. We can see only one. So rest of the items are given here. 1.1 to 2, maybe 2 to 3. Probably this will be 2 to 3, 3 to 6, 7 to 10. So these are the several other options and several checkboxes and everything. So this one is going to be a lengthier code than the previous one, right? Yeah, it's a final, it's an advanced level essay question which is going to give you a few marks. So what you have to do, that you have to repeat the same thing again and again. So you know when you open a particular checkbox, and you have to do 4 more. When you write the first category, you have to write 4 more. Radio buttons, don't consider this one, but writing the same thing 4 times, takes time. So what you can do is you can write the first line and leave additional 4 lines and go for the next part. Why is that? We have to save the time. Earlier also we took time, so you have to manage the time during the exam, right? Yes, it's a definite question, but it's the same thing, right? You have to write the same thing again and again. So you better write it in a smart way. Just show them that you know. Then if time permits, come and fill the rest. So that's the target, because A-level is very competitive exam. So you have to gather every possible mark, right? So that in the paper, when you are writing the answer, show them that you know the things, and just leave the space. If time permits, if you have time, come back and do the same. So write 1 or 2 lines, then leave the rest and go for the next line, likewise, right? So another hint, a kind of a important hint, I hope, right, that you have to write. Okay, fine. So what we have to do is, oh come on, we have to do it. So similarly, when the submit button is clicked, the form should be submitted. So it's a form, right, to be submitted to the server. So now we have a form that needed to be created. So again, I'll take the same notepad, right? Probably I will start another text file and we'll start. So I'll take it more in a more visible forum. Okay, fine, cool. Now again we have to start from the beginning, right? Entry form from that point, from the HTML. So plan your answer. So HTML, since let's say you are writing the answer, so you should know that you don't miss the closing tag. So how you make sure that you don't miss the closing tag? So you better keep the proper alignments. So if you can check the previous answer, wherever I start HTML, it's the same line. In between I have nothing in a tab line. Now in the writing, when you are writing the exam paper in a paper, you don't have tabs. You can think like that she's just typing. But you can have spaces. You can have any number of any amount of line spaces in between, right? How do we do it in a paper when we are writing things? So leave it. That's why you need to bring a foot ruler, right? Just not to keep 1 inch, maybe just 1 centimeter line, or 1 centimeter or half centimeter would be enough, right? Just draw a line. I don't know. I feel it as a good option. Just leave it so you know you don't miss the closing tags, because you have to do it at the end, right? So we'll see. I will try in that way, right? HTML is started. Then I have the head. So in the head, of course, I have to start with meta tag, where char set is equals to UTF-8 and close the tag. It's double quotation and close the tag, right? Then we'll start with title tag. So title is entry form and close the title. It's the same line. So once the title is done, what else I have to do? They are not talking about any styles here. So head is done. Then comes the body. So I'm using the writing style. So in the body, what I have at the top is, we'll decide the size of the text. So it is like header 1. This is not like header 2, it's like header 3 probably. And then you have normal text, right? And the spaces, can you check? You have spaces. So you can have 2 ways. One is you can have a break tag after each and every line, but the break tag won't give you this much space. Or we can simply have each line in a paragraph format, right? So we'll assume either you can have, of course you can have, who knows, right? But here what you mention is whatever things that you thought you can, that comes into your mind in the exam. So either you can have a break line break, or you can have a paragraph tag for each line. Paragraph tag started, paragraph closed. Another paragraph started, another paragraph closed. Again, that will make your code kind of neat and nice, but make sure that the answer is clean, right? Okay, we'll see. So body, for now, yeah, body, it's head 1, level 1 heading, so art, competition, or something, right? So H1 done. You have to write it, but I just make it, no. Okay, we'll type art competition online entry form 2017, right? That's the header 1. Next, I'll take H3. Header 3. Header 3 comes is theme is litter on the environment, and close the H3, right? So line breaks will come automatically. Then what I am going to do is not to have break statements at the end. I am going to have it as a paragraph. But anyhow, whatever it is, this part, the data collected from this part needed to be either submit or either reset. So definitely this is a form. So you have to start and end a form, and in between the form you have to mention all these things, all these text boxes, radio buttons and everything, right? So here comes the form tag then. So form, inside the form that everything else comes. So another alignment, another line from the foot roller. Maybe half is not enough. We have no idea. Half is enough, of course, if you know how to manage it, right? So in the form tag, form, and inside the form tag you have to mention everything else, right? So in the form tag we have few special necessary things to mention. So of course the method, how the data is going to be sent, either by using the get method or post method. So I hope you can have the idea of the you know the idea of get and post. So we know get is not very good in the case of passing sensitive information or lengthier information, because get has limited properties. It can't do much things, can't take much values, and all the values will be stored in the cache, and it will be available in the history, web browser history likewise, right? So it is not that good to have them in the to pass sensitive information through the get method. So post in the other case have no character limitation. It cannot be cached. The browser history is not going to save the data. So when you are sending passwords or any other credentials, you go for the post method, or you can go for the get method if it is not that sensitive, right? So here it doesn't seems like very sensitive data is passing, so you can either get the get method or the post. So I'll go for post, right? And the action, when the submit button is clicked, what should be happen, and you have to mention it here, closing the bracket, right? So somehow, so what needed to be done, is it mentioned here? Similarly, when the submit button is clicked, the form should be submitted to the server detail. Is it available somewhere? Some script should run, PHP script should run. So some file, I didn't get that PHP file thing here, maybe I missed, maybe I'm not. So some kind of a PHP file should be passed here. So maybe test.php, something. If we'll read the question again, if we find the answer, we'll change it, right? So the form should submit a value, fine. Okay, now form is there, where's our image, right? And what we have now, the form, now we have to start writing the content. So name, I'll have another line break, name, and it's a text box. So text box means you have to have input type. So input type, its input type is text. Text box, you know, type is text, type equals text. And we better mention the name tag, which is necessary. So give a proper name. So txt name, since it is a text box, I'll use txt name, right? So input tag is closing itself. Either you can mention closing here, or you can omit it, no problem, right? So you can write it like this, so it's complete, right? After that line, I will have I have to have the gender where male and female is mentioned. So I will have a paragraph tag here to mention the gender, right? So gender, no colon, colon is there, gender, and then I have the 2 radio buttons. So 2 radio buttons means again it's input, right? It's the input tag. The type will be radio. When we have a radio button, we have to make sure it is grouped by using the correct name. So name would be, let's say, gender, and individual value should be, first one is male, so I will use the value as male. So input tag will be closed. After the button will have the text male, right? And in the same line I will have another input. So what I am going to do is I am going to have it here. I will copy the line. Now you can say we can't copy things in the exam. Of course you can't, but female, and here you have to mention female. So make sure male and female, 2 buttons are added and the content is there, and then I'll close the paragraph tag. So that's the, maybe you don't have to worry about leaving this much of space. I'm writing this so that it's clear to you, right? I'm getting this spacing, right? So gender, male and female, done. So this part is done. Then the next category. So I'll have another paragraph tag open to mention the drop down list. So drop down list is not considered as a input tag. It is taken using the select, right? So grade category, and then you have the select tag. Select, let's say tag the name of the tag will be name. So grade, right? It could be grade. So that's the select tag. So I'll take it select tag here. So under this select tag I have to make the options. So the first option, value should be unique. So first category, grade. So we'll say grade 1 is the name, right? Option value grade 1, which is grade 1. Grade 1 to 2, 1 to 2, right? And that option is done. First option is done, right? Then the second option, which is value is grade category 1 or category 2, you can have any name, it doesn't matter. Grade 2, where grade goes from 2 to 3, hopefully. 1 to 3, I can't see the second one, so I'll consider selected one is 1 to 2, so we have 3 to 4, 3 to 6. Selected one is 3 to 6, so the option is done, right? And 4 similar, 2 more to go, so I'll just leave the space and I'll finish the select tag here, because that's how I'm going to do it, because I know it's going to be exactly same as the previous 2 lines, right? If time permits, I will come back and complete. So that's the plan, right? So the paragraph is done, select is done, paragraph is done. So you can see the pencil lines, the alignment lines that you have created, probably it's there, right? So this is done. Then comes the art media content. So another paragraph or 2 line breaks probably. There is a kind of a gap, right? So art media and another paragraph tag, the paragraph closed, and another paragraph. Now you have the check boxes. So check boxes coming with input type. Input type is check boxes. Check box. Name should be same category, same, right? So it could be same, yeah. Some media 1, and value should be equals to watercolors, watercolors, water C. Value is taken, right? So if space is enough, or since I don't have enough space, colors, right? Next comes next input type, and I'm going to do the same, right? Input type and input type and another input type to mention the rest, and that paragraph is closed. Paragraph is closed, right? So I will repeat the same if needed, right? So that's the end of the form. So see, no, the buttons should be available inside the form. So I have made the mistake. So button should be inside the form too, right? Of course. So the paragraph is done. Then we have, we'll take another paragraph and have the buttons. So the first button is reset button. So it's input type is reset, right? So the value, you can have value, it says when the clear your entries button is clicked, all the entries of the flow. So the value means that whatever the things that you mentioned, so value should be the name of the button which appears. So it says clear your entries, right? That's the button. And another few lines or a paragraph spacing, right? And then the next button, another input, but this type is submit button. It's a submit format, right? When we submit, our action will be taken place. So the data will be passed using the post method when the submit button is called or clicked. So value which is appeared as submit, and that's the end. So paragraph is now closed, right? So done. So we'll come back our ruler things. So paragraph started and closed. Then the form needs to be closed. Form, the closing tag, right? So the next line should be closing tag of what? Go through. It's the closing of the body. Next is going to be the closing of HTML. Right? So you didn't miss anything simply because you kept the alignments, right? So keeping the alignments is that much important. So it won't make a problem. So that's it. So 15 marks for these two questions, these two answers. It's a huge list. Only thing is you have to plan the answer, how to write it nicely, right? So here I have done it in a one way, where I open and close the tag, the way that we normally do when we implement things in the physical forum, right? Actually, but the second method is the one that we have to do it in the exam. You have to write. So you have to make sure that you may keep the necessary spacing, enough spacing, so that it's clear to you as well as it is clear to the whoever marking the paper, right? So that's the idea about HTML paper, which is the 2017 paper, which was an essay question, right? So we don't normally get much of the essay questions, but still it can get, and there can be several other things as well. So here we have checked with the CSS knowledge. So we have gone through briefly the different types of CSS parts and how the styles are mentioned, different styling options and everything. We had ordered, unordered list here, we had a form, and we had different input types. So many things have been checked in a single question, right? So that's it. That's the idea. So if you want to know the marking breakdown, yes, it's maybe probably the idea of this session is not to give you the answer, because I know that you can already find the papers. Also maybe you already have the answers with you, several past paper books with answers or the marking schemes, so you can find it. What we have, but our target is in this particular session is how to attempt a question. So give you an idea about how to attempt to write an answer, right? That's the idea. So probably these things are available in different sheets. I have kept them in a single document and kept some space to write all these mess, but I hope it's not that mess as it looks like now, right? Okay, so that's the end of the 2017 paper. It's normally for a paper it takes maximum 30 minutes for a essay question. Don't take too much time, rather than 30 minutes if you really have enough time, or else just stop that particular question by that time. That's, I don't know, that's kind of, it depends, totally depends on the way that you perform. It's totally up to you, but maximum time allocated for an essay question is half an hour, 30 minutes, right? So you have to do all these things, or you have to plan and write everything. So it won't take that much of time when you write things by yourself, because here I was explaining a lot and I was referring a lot more, right? Lot more which is not available to the question as well, right? So thing is that you have to try. Okay, that was an essay question. Next, what we have to do is we have to go for we'll go for the 2018 paper, which is now here it's a structured paper, which takes 10 marks, which should be completed with maximum of 15 minutes, right? And you have to write the answer on the paper itself. You have to write the answer on the paper itself with the given space. So make sure you do it in one go. So you have to think very clearly and decide your answer and write it, because usually in the exams using tippets and everything is not encouraged, and don't make it a mess. You can write things and you can cut the things and you can erase, and that could make a more mess, right? Erasing thing is really not recommended, because it could tear up your paper, right? So when you are writing a structured question within 15 minutes, which will take 10 marks, and you have no option to choose, you have to write all answers for all the 4 questions. So it's not optional. If you don't know, just leave the space and go for the next question, right? Then later if you come back, if you come across with the correct answer, you can write it down, right? So that's the idea. So we'll see. Back again about the CSS. State 2 benefits of using cascading style sheets. So using benefits of using CSS. So simply, there are a lot of answers that you can write for this. At the beginning of this particular session, we mentioned few. I might not write the things. Yeah, I didn't wrote anything, but when I was writing the things here, I said a lot, right? So if you use the external style sheets, you can have the same set of styles in different web pages or websites, right? Reusability, simply we can reuse the styles in maybe in different pages or different pages or even in different websites, right? Or in different tags in the least case, right? So reusability is one big advantage, and we can keep this very consistent way. If we mention h1 tag is having color red, and wherever we use the h1 tag, color will be red, or any other styles that we have mentioned here will be applied to all the every time that we use the particular tag. So we can say consistency, having a consistent feature, consistent output throughout the page or the website, right? And if you want to make sure that header should not be red, but it should be mentioned in green, so you just have to change it only one time, right? When you do the modifications, especially when you are using external style sheets, right? External files, the option 1, if you can remember, external styles, and of course in internal styles as well, you will have only one location to modify so that you can get a completely different output, right? Just change one location. If you use the inline style system, this method, you have to make sure all the location, all the style. Here if you make color red, and if you want to make it green, so all the locations where you have the modification to be needed to be done, you have to modify every other location. But if you use a style sheet or internal styles, so you can do it, modification is easily, very easily, right? So that's another advantage. So you can choose one of the things, and more, rather than HTML formatting, you can have several CSS formatting styles, a lot more, and less complex HTML page. You can get less complex HTML page when you put all these CSS files into a different location, right? Less complex HTML code, and it will be very clean and nice and tidy, right? So you can choose whatever the 2 options, you can choose 2 and just write it down here, right? So maybe the reusability of the styles in, so my handwriting is very bad, but I know you can do better than this, right? So reusability of these styles in different web pages, and many more, any of the other thing that you could think of, right? That's just a quick answer. Then it says, write the output of the following HTML code segment when rendered by a web browser. So you have to draw the answer. In the question, I doubt why it happens. The spacing is not enough. There were not any space given, but make sure that you write it down somewhere in a clear way, right? So write the output of the following HTML code. So yes, HTML is there. Luckily, you don't have the title, head and title. You don't have to draw this title page as in the previous question. Here you have the title, right? But in this particular question you don't. So that's kind of good. Right? Shall I change the color? No, blue is good. No. Okay, let's see. Okay, then the body, and directly it starts with U. U means the underline. So a text, not a heading, nothing, a simple text. Important sites. It's underlined, right? Important sites and underline. Then comes UL. UL means unordered list. So you should know wherever that we have an unordered list, it will automatically align a bit. It just come a bit to the center, not completely to the center, but a bit to the center, right? Wherever we have unordered or ordered list, it comes, there is a kind of a alignment change. So you have to note that, right? So it's going to be an unordered list. Style is not mentioned, so it is going to be a circle. And the list item, first link item is going to be an anchor which directs somewhere. And the text says National Institute of Education. So you have the text which will appear is National Institute of Education, right? And the list item is done. So it's an anchor, or anchor is closed, list item is done. So this is the item. So since it is a link or a hyperlink or anchor, we have it is normally underlined. Just because it's a hyperlink, that's why we have underlined. Hyperlink is underlined, right? The reason. So the next list item is Department of Examination. So Department of Examination, again a hyperlink, done. And unordered list is over, body is closed. So this is going to be our output. The same font size, so you don't have to worry about much, right? So the alignment when it starts with an unordered list is a must. So you have to know that, right? Okay, then comes the third question. Again, write an output of the following HTML code segment when rendered by a web browser. Same question, but different code. Here what it says, HTML body, again title is not there, and a paragraph. So paragraph means a text is going to be there, line spacing should be there, with the starting point and the ending point. So ending point, we have bracket, line breaks, a line break, a center tag. Center tag is open and closed, and the paragraph, and what is this? HR, horizontal ruler. So we have to manage the space. We'll see. So paragraph is centered. So whatever the things we have in between center, so we have to show that we are writing this in a center format. We'll see. So Department of Examination. Department of Examination. Examinations. And the line break. So and still centered. So Pelavatta. And a line break, still centered, Vattaramulla. And center is closed, whatever the things needed to be printed here, but that's the end of the paragraph. And there is a horizontal ruler. So horizontal ruler, right? So even without this line, you can we can define with this line, you can define we have drawn things in the centered format. So center, right, because otherwise we don't have a way to show that, and the text should be centered, not very equally, but it should looks like centered, right. So few marks collected, done. Then because 15 minute question, right. So consider the following HTML code segment. Again, code is given. In the 2017 paper, you had to write so many codes, and here the codes are given. Different ways of asking questions. So consider the following HTML code segment, body and body, done. Header 1, HTML. Write down the internal styles required to apply the styles mentioned in the following table for the element H1 and P in the about code segment. Now they are asking not the code, not the output, but to have the CSS files written to make the following content, right, to give the answer for the following styles. So styles are given, everything is given, that you have to put them into that structure, the way that we are writing CSS files, right. Following table of elements H1, and it says, see, internal styles. So internal styles, how do we define it? Wherever we mention the styles, it looks same, right. It starts with the tag, and we mention the definition. That's it. Within curly brackets, we have the property and the value within curly brackets. So that's the way, but to make sure that it is written in the internal slide, these styles mentioned as, is you have to mention the style tag. Even with the rest of the attributes or not, you have to mention the style tag. Then comes H1. Right. So H1, header 1, should be of color blue, semicolon, and text align is center. So colon and center, semicolon, font family, colon, and area. And semicolon means done, close the curly bracket. Then comes paragraph tag, and the background color you have to say. In HTML it's BG color, in the here it's background color. So you should know the difference. Background color, it's yellow. And font size is, now it's 12 pix. Earlier in the previous question we had it used with points, right. So it's pixels here, and that's it, and we'll close the style tag. So style tag is used just to make sure that we have written in using internal styles. No matter what, whether it's internal or external style sheet that we have used to write the CSS code, the code segment looks same. The styles, the way that we define the style is same, but this makes the difference. This tag makes the difference, right. So you have to mention that part. Okay, I hope you get this point. Then comes part C, where you have to fill the blank. So completely opposite of the previous question. The code is given, you have to fill the blank. So it will save the time. So this, consider the HTML form given below rendered by a web browser. This is a registration form used to registering students, and it is required to enter student name as a text input. So this one is going to be a text box. Select the gender. Of course we can see it's going to be a radio button. Select district and click submit button. So it is a drop down. So drop down means it's going to be a select. So this one is an input type, this one also an input type, right? So this is the idea. And then you have a submit button. We don't have to worry because the code is given, right? So what you have to do is you have to draw, see the image and fill the things. So everything, action is equals to register.php, method is post, comes with, we have done it, right? It's the form tag, right? Form tag, and they have started division for student name. So input, it's a type is, input type is going to be a text, not text box, and the name will be the name of the text box will be name, right? Then comes the gender. Input type is going to be radio. We have the same, whatever the same thing, to make them in a single group. That's where that we make sure that either male or female is selected. If we don't put them into a same group, both will be able to select, right? So we have to make sure it is not happening. So we have to make sure the name is equal, but the value is different for the male and female, right? Then comes the drop down list. So input, of course, this is type equals radio with double quotes. Selected district. So selected district means whatever the content here, and we have to, of course, we have to select and we have to mention the name. So options have different values, and the things that we have to display is different too. For Jaffna, we have to make sure it's Jaffna and it's Mathara. So value and value, right? So something is closed. Which is closed? See, it's the select tag and branch, and here name is submit. So input type is submit, and this is the name is submit. What is printed? What is printed is mentioned as value. So value is submitted too. And again, not the BR is closed here. Input tag is automatically closed. So which one is closed here? HTML body and what? Form. So form is closed, right? Almost the same thing, very few unique parts. So this is unique, type and value is available, and this is unique, something like that, right? So a question which can be quickly answered, even though it looks very big, right? So oh, that's the end. We have taken around 20 minutes to discuss that question, but it takes less time because we have discussed so many things earlier with the previous question, right? Okay, so maximum 15 minutes for the question. If you are aware of the things, 15 minutes is more than enough to write a structured question. So make sure that you don't take too much time on the structure for any question. For the structure, 10 minutes max, 15 minutes maximum. For essay question, 30 minutes, right? So how do you do that? So what you have to do is you have to practice. So that's what you have to do. You have to practice. You have to practice a lot, right? So how do you practice? You have the papers. Keep a timer and do the paper, even one question at a time. So that's how you practice, right? Okay, so the third and the last question that I was expected to discuss, the fresh paper 2020, the last paper that we have with the advanced level, right? It's a very fresh one. Okay, so again, it's the first question of the structured paper. It says draw the expected output. So again, they don't ask you to write the code. Expected output of the following code segment when rendered by a web browser. And now we are talking about tables, starting and ending point of the tables, right? So far we didn't get a table, and table has this special property border. So you can set this border 0, so you won't be able to see the lines. So border equals 1 means you can draw the line, otherwise you should not, right? Border can be 2 or 3 or many a higher number. That means the thickness is better, but we can't explain the thickness, right, in a written exam paper. So what we have to do is we can know with this point what we should get, we can draw the lines. We can draw the lines, right? Okay, that's the idea. We'll see. Then table rows. Under the table, what we have is we have different tags. Table headers are there, table rows are there, table data, which are column values or cell values are mentioned with this, right? So these are the 5 things that we have to, the main tags that we have with tables. And then comes tr, table row. Table row is closed here. That means everything which comes in between these two tr tags should be in a single line, right? And table header and header, another table header and closing the header. Table header starts and table header close. Simply by looking at this question that we can see there are 3 columns, right? So what we can do is, it is not centered to anywhere. So what we can do is, please consider the edge of, see the note, please consider the edges of the following dotted line box as the display area of the web browser. So don't draw it in the middle. Middle means there should be a center tag. Which we don't have, right? So what we can do is, we can just go to the left corner, because that is the default case. So what we are going to do is, we have recognized table header. So how do we recognize table header and a table data? It's kind of bolded, right? So you can write any text that you write twice. Don't make sure that you don't damage your paper by writing the same thing again and again, but make sure you keep it nice, right? Because it's a structured paper. You have to write the answers in the given space. So table header says number, so bolded, and the column table header type, so type, and another column city, CT, column, done. And the table row is done too. Once the table row is done, we can draw the line, because that table row is done, bolded. Then the next line, next table row, first table data item is 1, fine. Next line, table data is done. Next line says table data row span 2. So we have row span and col span, where we merge rows or merge columns, right? So merge means that we have to combine. So here we have to combine rows. How many rows? 2 rows. So one line, if this is the first line, this is the second line, we know high is, so if this is a table, one particular row, 2 rows are merged and the content is mentioned here, and the table data is done. The next line, table data is mentioned as goal, So goal, so single line, and table data is done, row is done. Then comes the next row where we have table data is 2, because that's the next row. This is the next row. Table data is 2, and this column is already done. We don't have to mention. We don't have that line. See, only 2 table data, because the second column is already done, and here it comes the value as Jaffna, right? So you can use a ruler and draw the lines nicely. You can draw lines drawn means border is equals to 1 and row span is done. So make sure you have highlighted. Highlighted means that write it twice probably, or if you are writing the answers in blue color, write the topic in black, not anything, not any other colors, right? Either blue or black, right? So done. Table header. So consider the following HTML code in which the lines are numbered to answer the questions in the part, right? Okay, so we can directly refer line numbers in case if we need. What are the colors of the text in line number 8 and 9? Line number 8 and 9. 8 says H1 style equals color green. So this is an inline style. Inline CSS styles. Can you remember? The one that we have mentioned at the very beginning of this session. Inline styles. Right? So here inline style means during the style, inside the style we mention the, inside the tag we mention the style, right? See, and here it says it's inline CSS, so it's green. H2 says title 2. So what's the color of line number 2 or the second header? See, here you have what? You have the second method, the internal styles as well. So internal styles defined over H1 and H2. But here again H1 is again styled using another color. So the question asked in line number 8, the text is title 1. What is the color of that title? If we have all 3 or 2 multiple CSS styling methods, inline style, the one who's next to you will give you a kind of a force. So no matter here in the internal styles, you says that color should be blue. In line style says H1 color should be, header 1 color should be green. So he can't do anything. It's green. But H2 doesn't have, the header 2 tag doesn't have any inline style mention. So it will take the style assigned in the internal style. So it will be blue. So that's the knowledge that you should take, right? So very simple question, but you have to think and analyze carefully, right? So write down one advantage of defining styles as in line number 3, 4 and 5 over that of line 8, right? So I'll use green, orange, yeah, orange. What's the advantage of defining the styles like this rather than defining styles like this? The same few, right? So H1, wherever we have H1 or H2, we don't have to mention the styles again and again, right? So it says one advantage, the best advantage we can have is reusability of the style. We can reuse the style throughout this page in many locations that you like. So you can write the correct answer. You can just space is very limited, but you have to write a clear answer for that particular scenario, right? It's a direct answer, but you have to write it directly, nicely, right? And it says write only the content of the external style. Now it is about external style. In this particular question, inline styles were given, internal styles were given, and now they are talking about external styles. You have to write the answer in an external style way, right? The style defined in line number 8. How do you write it using an external style? It's H1 green, right? So different ways that you can write. So style defined in line number 8, it's easy enough. Simply you have to write H1 where color is, what was the color? Green. That's why we get this one here. And B, a CSS ID named appear. CSS ID named appear to define the style of the font as Arial. Now that's something new, right? So here I said that we can define styles in different ways. We can directly mention the tag and the style of that tag, right? Or else we can define the styles using the class attribute, using the class attribute of that style, right? So how do we define it using a class attribute? Class attribute means every tag has a class. We can mention a class. For any, even H1, we can have a class tag, right? So wherever we have the same class, we can apply the same style for any location where we have the same class. Same class. I want to draw the star. All right, done. Right? Okay. So how we do that? If it is a class attribute, we can define it with a dot. If we have, let's say, a class as class A, if we have defined class as class A, my style, I'll say the easiest one, color should be red. Wherever I have the class A, color should be red. Both tag and class. So if I have H1 tag with class A, then the color of that H1 tag should be orange. I'm using the same tag so that it's easy to identify the difference, right? So either that, or you can have another property of any tag which is known as ID. We can give an ID for any tag, right? So we can define the values same ID for different tags. So wherever we have the common ID, so common ID, let's say it's a box. So if we have the common ID, use the color as green. So 4 different ways of defining styles, right? Either directly by using the tag or class or tag and class or the ID. So ID is defined over the hash mark, right? So if we are defining, if we have to define a CSS ID named appear to define style of the font as Arial, what we have to do is we have to make sure that appear is the ID. ID, we have mentioned it as ID with the hash Arial, which is font family Arial, right? So font family is Arial. So that's the idea. How do you define? Okay, then comes the PHP part. So this is the first time, not first time, there were situations where the PHP codes were asked, but after a long time the whole code is given here in the previous paper, right? So you can expect something, I don't know, you can think what to be expected, right? So now the PHP part is introduced with the question. Not introduced, it is there in the paper, so the syllabus for a long time, right? Now most people don't teach this PHP part much, but I think after this paper, students, it's better to pay some attention for the PHP as well, because see, it's there, right? So PHP, what is PHP doing with this one? So as I mentioned in the very first, at the beginning of the session, HTML and CSS deals with the front end, the interfaces, and the MySQL and all the other database related things that you have learned over chapter 9 or the competency level 9. You will be doing the database or the backend. The one who's connecting these two is PHP. It's a communication channel between these two. So what it does is, whatever the things that you are passing through this form, right? Whatever the things you pass, you take it to the PHP and convert it to a way that SQL can understand, or simply pass it using SQL, right? So this is what the work of PHP, right? So what we are going to do with this PHP? So simply there are few things that you better know that we do with PHP, because same set of steps, very similar steps that we have to do, right? Around 3, right? That PHP does 3 things. First one is, it will create a connection. It will create a connection to the database. It will open up a path, something like this. It will create a path where we go and define, this is the database that I want to access for this particular form. So please open a path. So that's the first task. Second one is, get the data from the HTML page. So get the data from the HTML page. That's the second task. So take it. So path is open, data is taken. Now what we have to do is send the data, the taken data, send the data, send the data through the created connection. Or the other way around. So you can send the data, of course you can send the data, you can send as well as you can retrieve the data as well. You can request and retrieve and send it back to the file, the front end. Both can be done using this PHP, right? So this is the idea. So how it is being done? So creating the connection. So the first step, creating the connection part, is done using the connection like this, $, a variable, and a new MySQLi connection class, where you have to mention whatever the server that you have here, right? So you have to mention through which server that you are accessing the data, and what is the username of the server, and what is the password. Without that you can't access, and what is the name of the database that you are going to have. So if you give all these correct information, it will create a connection, and the data or the connection will be stored under $con. It could be anything, right? Any name. And while we have created this one, this is the creation. So while we have created the connection, we have to make sure that the connection is correctly there. Connection is created correctly, or whether we failed. So to check that one, what we have is, we have a connection class. We will check whether this connection is having an error or not. So this could be done in different ways, right? So whether this connect is having an error, right? We could check this connection error is taken into a variable and check with that. Anyhow you have to check. If there is a connection error, so if and everything, it's kind of programming, right? So programming that we have, again, I hope you have done with Python and another big topic that we have discussed. So if this connection has an error, we'll call stop the execution. The word that we use to say stop the execution is die, right? So we can print a message, connection failed or something, print a message, and print the error as well, connection error, whatever the error that we get, we can display it and we can stop the execution, because if the connection is not created, it's useless to send the data here and there, because it's not created. If the connection is not created, it's useless to do the rest of the stuff. So whatever we do is, we'll create the connection with necessary credentials and check whether it works, right? That's the first thing. Then the second step, get the data. So how do we get that? That's where we have that get and post methods. So these are something like kind of arrays, 2D arrays, right? So again, arrays in programming, where we can access array elements using an index, right? So get and post also feels like kind of an array, but it has index is not predefined. It's the name that we have given for the text boxes, or to any other radio button or anything, whatever the output that we are taking with that form. So wherever you have a form, so this is the form, and from the back end you will be giving a name for this particular text box. You will be giving a name for the radio button. You will be giving a name for the drop down list. So this is the name that we take. If it is a drop down class, drop down, the name that you have given to each element is considered as the index of this special array post or get, right? So using that one, so maybe text, the ID is S001, name maybe someone, date of birth and year. So you have several values, right? So how we are going to get whatever the things that if we have posted it using the posted method, in that post array, whatever the things available in text ID index can be taken into a variable, PHP variable. Once again, in the post array, that's the way that we have sent the data from the HTML file, right? So whatever the things available in the txt name index, which is someone, is assigned to a variable called name. Likewise, what we do, whatever the things sent by this HTML file, through this post method is taken into variables. Option, the second step, get the data. Then the third method, which is sending the data. So where you have to write the SQL query, right? So maybe it's an insert statement. So talking about SQL, it's another topic, right? So insert data, insert into this particular student table, or retrieving values, maybe a select, right? Like this, you write the query including the IDs, the variable values that you have taken, these things, include them and send the data, right? And you just, if it is there, we create the query, the SQL query. Creating SQL is another story, right? And if, what we can do is we can call the query, whatever the query that we have defined under SQL, we can send that query, or we can call, send the data using this particular function. If it is working fine, so it will have some value, otherwise it will be null. So if it is happened nicely, we can say okay, done, we have inserted. Else we can say sorry, we couldn't insert. Likewise, we can print an error message just to know the programmer or the user we couldn't do it. So at the very first step, we have created the connection, we have started up the connection, and then we have to close. So connection, if we have opened a path, make sure it is closed at the end, right? So PHP, in the sense, that is what it does. It creates the connection, get the data, and pass the data using that created connection. So that's the idea. So PHP is another part that you have to look into, because with the pattern, PHP is kind of, there's a good chance that you can get PHP in the next upcoming years, right? There is a chance. It may be or it may not be, but depends, right? So back to the question. So the following 4 PHP code blocks, which are labeled as A, B, C, D, are taken from a code inserted to retrieve data from the database to display on screen. However, the code blocks are not in the correct order. So what we have to do is write the labels. We don't need to write the code. Write the labels of the 4 code blocks in the correct order inside the 4 blanks available. So which needs to be done first? So here, selecting the query, it's the query, and calling the connection. So here you, what you do is you just pass the values. Earlier we discussed about passing to the database. Here it is retrieving. Select statement means you retrieve data, right? In the second line, in the second statement, what it does is connection, if the connection has an error, fail, die, right? Simply check the connection. Next line, it says, while there are any rows in the result, what's result? What's result, right? We'll see, right? So while there are any number of rows in the result set, what we have to do is we have to print something. So echo means printing part. Echo means printing what? Whatever the things available in each row, right? Else print 0 results. This is something printing the result. D, connection new MySQLi, where you have the server name, username, password, and the name of the database where you are creating the connection. So which one needs to be done first? Of course, you have to create the connection, right? You have to create the connection. That's the very first thing. Then once you have created the connection, then you have to check whether connection is working fine. If it is working fine, you can call the values. You can create the SQL query and call the query. So you can either insert or retrieve whatever the values here, and whatever the retrieved values can be printed out, right? So simply you have to know the order so that you can fill the blank. So definitely this question won't be asking in the next time or ever again, but this is an opening up. This is a situation where you open up to the whole thing, right? Whole PHP concept, right? Then comes the last part. If the above code blocks are in the correct order, what is the expected output if the product table has only following values? So what is product table? See, we didn't think much about this. Select item code name from product. So this is the SQL query. So writing SQL query belongs to the database, maybe the competency 8, a very simple query, right? But you should know what happens. Select item code and name from product table. So simply it is returning both of these rows, item code and name. So how the output is going to be? Blocks are in the correct order. What is the expected output? So these are the values to be returned. So output is printed in a different way, where echo means printing, echo code and colon, and the item code of the first row, which is P1, and slash item, it's capital I, item colon, and whatever the name column holds in the first row pane. Then a line break. Okay, line break. Then again the next row, since there is another row, we print code, colon, the item code given in that row, P3, slash item, colon, and the name column is having, in that row, second row, name column is having book, a line break, and there will be no rows available in the resulting, because that's all, that's the only thing. So this is the output that you will be taking if this table is having, and this is the code, if this code works fine, right? So that's the end of that question paper. Simply it took more than 2 hours, but in case if you have any questions, I'll try my best to answer. Seems like there are no questions. We can conclude the session. So expecting your feedbacks So you can give us a feedback about the session when you go through. So we can meet you in another day in future, right? So good luck for your exams. So please study well. Do some past papers. Make sure that you keep time and keep a timer and do it and practice well and perform well at the exam. Okay, then good luck to all, you all, and see you soon. Bye.